Okay then, let's do this. So this is the start of a new segment on the channel called the Roger Moore-a-thon. So, as you might have guessed, this is going to be talking about the films of Roger Moore. Now, we've done a few things on this channel. We've spent a lot of time talking about Jackie Chan movies. We've spent a fair amount of time talking about Bruce Lee. We've talked a bit about Peter Cushing and Christopher Lee. And I have talked about Roger quite a lot on this channel. What you've got to appreciate is, you go through that stage in life where you see someone for the first time and you absolutely idolize them. This was it for me because when I was growing up, let's rewind. It was on the run up to Die Another Day, so this would have been around 2001, 2002. So my dad had the Bond films on VHS. So basically, like every weekend, we'd set out and we'd watch a Bond movie, and we essentially went through them in chronological order. So that was good. Um, it's quite a novel thing, actually. When you hear people talk about, oh, what was the first Bond movie you ever saw? And I think I can have a legitimate claim that the first Bond movie I ever saw was actually Doctor No. But yeah, so we watched through all of Sean's and then watched through Jock. We actually kind of did it out of order because we watched all of the Sean Connery ones and then we watched the George Lazenby one. And then, of course, we went on to Roger. Now, here's the thing. I was enjoying them. Well, we got through 7 movies by this point, so you'd think I was kind of enjoying them. And then we got to Roger's films, and again, it was just, I absolutely fell in love with the man. I absolutely adore Roger Moore, and I genuinely think he is the definitive 70s British leading man. He absolutely is. Being the Bond, because obviously there was all of that talk that initially when they were casting for Bond back in the early 60s, that Roger Moore was one of the candidates. But of course he'd signed to do The Saint. Ironically enough, The Saint started in 62 when Doctor No was released. And then obviously it came back around. Not unlike, I suppose, what happened with Pierce Brosnan. But for me, Roger, as the Bond of the 70s, he was perfect. Because this was the thing. Sean Connery was perfect as the 60s Bond. But this is... Then, obviously, he came back in 71 to do Diamonds Are Forever. And I'm weird on Diamonds Are Forever, but it just felt Connery in the 70s as Bond felt strange, whereas Roger was the perfect fit. Now, with that being said, I love For Your Eyes Only, I love Octopussy, and obviously that was 81, 83. But then, of course, in the early 80s, we were still in that, for lack of a better term, hangover period from the 70s. There was still some of that vibe going on. So it still worked. But yeah, I absolutely idolised Roger Moore. I fell in. I adore. I love flares and bell bottoms and wide collars and safari suits, and it's all Roger Moore's fault. Because man, he looked so cool. You look obviously in particular, obviously, The Spy Who Loved Me and Moonraker. That's when the bell bottoms were in full flow. Obviously, we were building up to him in Live and Let Die and Man with a Golden Gun. They were creeping in, but he was still mixing and matching. Like, you look at the gun barrel for these first 2 Bond films, and he's still got, like, for lack of a better term, the classic straight leg cut trousers on, for example. But there's bits here and there, like obviously at the end of Live and Let Die, those black bell bottoms he has on when he goes back to face off against Kananga. And then obviously there's parts in Man with the Golden Gun. Obviously, when he's got the safari suit on, he has the bell bottoms. When he goes to see High Fat and poses as Scaramanga, he's got some sweet white bell bottoms on. But then, obviously, when we get into Spy Who Loved Me and Moonraker, it all bets are off at that point, man. It's great. But we haven't even got to the one we're going to be talking about today. That was just the Bond thing. But basically, yeah, from around 7 question mark, Roger Moore was just firmly implanted into my mind, and it's been just all love ever since. But one of the I wasn't gonna. He says he isn't going to talk about Bond, but this isn't going to be so much focused on the Bond stuff because Roger did a lot of interesting stuff outside of it. Obviously, we mentioned The Saint, and that was one of the great things about Roger. He was an established star before he ever became Bond. We had The Saint. Prior to that we had Ivanhoe. We also had the Alaskans. He was a recurring character on Maverick, and he'd done some films. He'd done a western. Was it The Gold of the Seven Saints? And then he went over to and had an attempt to break through into Hollywood. It didn't work out, but that's all right. Did he do? Was it Prince Henri? Is it with Lana Turner? He has that infamous line, "You made me a prince, now make me a king," and that whole thing where he learned the importance of passion without the pressure in the kissing scenes, and then. And then obviously that's on all on the build up to finally The Saint, and obviously that made him a household name. And one of the things that's always great about Roger, he was always such, for lack of a better term, he was a darling man. And he was always so good with the fans, so gracious, so appreciative. And he realised, obviously, the Bond thing meant a lot of things to a lot of people. So he appreciated what it was. Daniel Craig, you could have took some notes. But here's the thing. The advantage that Roger had, you see, he already had the celebrity and the fame before he was Bond. And he also had a bit of age on him because he was approaching his mid-40s by the time he did Live and Let Die. So that kind of, for lack of a better term, the maturity, I suppose, it basically maybe give him a whole different outlook on the whole thing that was lacking. Like, obviously, Sean, he came into it, he was 30, it was the film that catapulted him to stardom. And you know what? Sean was always quite a reserved private man, as we all know. It's not his fault, because he could never have predicted what it was. He was just taking a role. So it's not his fault. It's not his fault. And when you look at it, he did so many of the films in rapid succession. It's understandable that he would have been burned out. So again, absolutely fine. But I think Pierce is the most comparable to Roger. And the similar thing, he was Remington Steele. And, he had that whole thing of he lost out on Living Daylights and he thought it was gone forever. And and then it finally came back around. And the thing I'll always talk about Pierce Brosnan is because he's suffered a significant amount of personal tragedy in his own life. He's had personal tragedy and obviously he's had professional disappointments and setbacks. He lost his first wife to cancer and he lost his daughter to cancer. So what I always say about Pierce Brosnan, he's one of those people, he has perspective. He's one of those people who appreciates the things that really do matter in life. And I'll always admire Pierce Brosnan. He is one of the basically, when you look at what it means to be a man, I think Pierce Brosnan is the gold standard. He's the aspiration. He's been a fantastic father. He's been a magnificent husband, obviously to his first wife and then to his second wife, Keely Shea Brosnan. I mean, they've been together, even counting the time before they were married, easy 30 years, and he's been nothing but a devoted husband. And from what I understand, his mother's still alive. Talk about a guy who's, to have your mother still with you at that age in life, that is a tremendous, tremendous good fortune. But he's a great son from what I understand as well. Just an all round fantastic guy. And he was magnificent as Bond. He was great as Remington Steele, and he was one of those guys. I think he's only gotten better as he's gotten older. He's got that bit of grizzle to him as he's gotten older, so he can kind of play more of those darker roles. Case in point, like what we got in The November Man. I always get excited when Pierce Brosnan's doing stuff. But back to Roger. So yeah, just in terms of the output that he had outside of the Bond films, that's kind of what this thing's going to focus on. But we're starting off with a Blu-ray that's just been released today. The Man Who Haunted Himself from 1970. So this is kind of Roger Moore's intermediary period. So he finished The Saint in 69, and then obviously he didn't start Bond until 73. But in those couple of years, a few years in between, he did some really interesting stuff. Crossplot, which was 69, the same year The Saint ended, which I've just pre-ordered from imprint along with Escape to Athena. We'll get to those when they arrive. But yeah, so 69 was Crossplot, 70 was The Man Who Haunted Himself, and then 71 to 72 was Persuaders. So yeah, this Blu-ray from Studio Canal has just been released today. Gorgeous artwork. It had been released previous, I think, by ITV. They did like a dual. Do you remember when they used to do the dual format releases where you got Blu-ray and DVD together? I liked those. We've kind of leveled up now though, because we get the dual format, but it's now moved to 4K and Blu-ray. So it's still there, just a bit different. But yeah, The Man Who Haunted Himself. This is a really, really good film. Classically British. We all mourn for that time period that no longer exists. And it's a time capsule film, this. Because obviously you get these wonderful opening titles of London. All the different shots in when he's driving on the highway. And it's just the whole vibe of it, and you get this wonderful 70s music score. That's one of the cool features on this, by the way. They've done music, they've included the music score as a special feature. Michael J. Lewis does the music. It's wonderfully effective, and it's wonderfully 70s, and it's wonderfully British. The whole vibe of this film, it's a British film through and through. It was made around there's that great photo that you can find online. It's a black and white photo of Roger Moore meeting Peter Cushing. And it was the same time. So while he was filming this, Peter Cushing was filming The Vampire Lovers. The one with Ingrid Pitt, where she's the lesbian vampire, and there's her, there's Kate O'Mara, and there is, the Live and Let Die connection, Maddie Smith, who plays the Bond girl in Roger Moore's first on-screen Bond girl. Yeah, so that was all going on at the same time. Was it around Elstree Studios, I think it was. But yeah, you have that wonderful black and white photo of Roger and Peter Cushing meeting each other up. Roger's sporting the tash. He's in his suit from this, and then Peter Cushing's in his full military regalia. It must have been when they're shooting the ballroom scene at the beginning of Vampire Lovers. But yeah, this film, it's wonderful. It's based on a book, The Case of Mr. Pelham. I got to get the book, man. I've been on a reading binge like you wouldn't believe. I made some kind of New Year's resolution. It wasn't this year. This year was all about finding some inner peace, but that's kind of been an ongoing saga. I made a resolution at one point. I want to read more, and it's good. It's going well. But yeah, I want to get the book of this. But yeah, so basically, of course, a guy who has a he's involved in a car accident right on at the beginning of the film. There's a whole sequence where he's driving along the highway, and then it's kind of like getting into that whole thing of the ego, and is it the ego, the super ego, and the id, um, and basically like his dark side. I don't know whether you want to call it yin yang, but basically his dark side takes over, and it's kind of hinted at like, is this a guy who's kind of had some kind of split personality, and his other side's come out, kind of a Jekyll and Hyde sort of thing. And he takes over while he's on the highway and he's speeding and he's going faster and faster and basically crashes into all of this construction work that's going on. Then he's rushed into surgery, dies on the operating table for a few minutes, and then they get his heart going, and then we see on the monitor there's two separate heartbeats going on, and then they give the machine a little tap and it rectifies itself. But then, so obviously he's recovering from his accident, getting back into, the natural flow of his life. But then there's all sorts of strange things going on, like people saying they've seen him here, they've met up with him here, they've arranged things here, and all this thing. And he's thinking, well, I have no memory of that. Is there something going on here? Is he an imposter? Is he an impersonator? What's going on? And also he's involved with this. He's on the board of this industrial... all industry, insider trading, all that good stuff. He's on the board of this particular organisation, and they're talking about this merger that they've got coming up. And then there's all sorts of things like there's this leak that's happened to the other side. How do they know about all of this? Who's responsible for it? And you're thinking, oh, is this him? Not realising, And then things build and build, and then we've got all of this whole thing of he's got this difficult relationship with his strained relationship with his wife. He loves her, he cares about her, but the sex life isn't going so well. And then obviously, things go on, and he investigates and finds that apparently there's this other woman, a photographer, who knows him and he doesn't understand why, and then she claims that they've had an affair together and he doesn't know anything about it. And then of course it's ultimately revealed that there is another Harold Pelham. There's two. So basically it's ultimately revealed when he died on the operating table, he let this other one out. So he's like the light side, and then he's let his dark side out, and his dark side's manifested as a whole other individual person. So like the yin and yang have become separated. And then he seeks the help of... We have some wonderful, wonderful character actors in this. Thorley Walters, who has been in a number of various Hammer production shows, up in this. He's great. He's a real character, Thorley Walters. He's always charming as all hell. He is very much so here. And then we get Freddie Jones as the psychiatrist who Roger Moore eventually turns to for help. Freddie Jones is great. Always great. Always great to see him in stuff. And even just other little, like, if if you're a fan of like British cinema, you'll notice guys like, we have one of the guys who's part of the rival organisation that they're going to be merging with. I think he's from Taste the Blood of Dracula, minus the tash. He has this fantastic moustache in Taste the Blood of Dracula. He's clean shaven in this. But there's a couple of like, oh, that's a guy. But I just love the whole vibe of this era of films. Like I say, it's a period of time. It's an era we're never going to get back to. It's sad, but it's true. We're never going to get back to it. It's long gone. And we're only ever going to get further and further away from it. There's a fair amount of sleaziness, when he goes over to see the photographer. She's very scantily clad. And it's 1970, so why wouldn't it be? But it's a very, very clever film, a very, very well done film. Of course, this is only an hour and a half, just over. So I can only assume that they've condensed a lot of what's in the book. It's always the same old story. But it's very, very well done. You feel as though you've got like a full... You don't feel as though it's lacking. And obviously when things come to a head at the end and they come face to face, it's very, very well done. And we've also got to talk about just the wonderful performance from Roger Moore in this. He's brilliant. He's absolutely brilliant. The way he plays both sides, like the light side who feels as though he's going crazy and his mind's falling apart. He has some wonderfully, well, it was some wonderful acting moments in this. You know, very, very sympathetic portrayal. And then, of course, when we get the other side of the coin, you can see he's having fun playing the dark side of it. So you get you get like kind of like the full spectrum of the Roger Moore performance here. But he's said of this film, it's a film he was very proud of. He even went so far as to say it's the one film in which I actually got to act. That is not entirely fair, because he's had some wonderful moments of acting. But this has always been the thing about Roger Moore. He's never given himself the credit he deserves. Because as I made a video a long time ago now, where I talked about his introductory scene that he has in The Wild Geese. There's some fantastic acting on display in that scene, man. That's one of his best performances. And then, of course, they have the sea wolves. The scene at the end, you know, when he finally realises that... Because there's that whole subplot in the sea wolves where he's got this on and off relationship with... I can't remember. Is it Mrs. Cromwell? Is it? It might be. But he has this will they, won't they thing going on with her. I mean, initially you think, well, it's almost in the contract because it's Roger Moore, he's got to have a love interest. But then, obviously, when it's revealed that she's a double agent working for the Germans, and then she sets him up to be assassinated, and then when he puts two and two together and realises, when he confronts her about it, there's the whole, like, gala ball going on, and he arrives there, much to her surprise, like, oh, he should be dead. But the way he plays it, when Roger gets serious, man, it's great. And that's a fine moment of acting. And even throughout his Bond tenure, he had some really, really good moments. He never gave himself the credit he deserved, honestly. And then there was another one again, like The Naked Face in 1984, the Cannon film that he did. Him, Elliot Gould, Rod Steiger, David Hennison, Anne Archer. That's a really interesting role for him as well. Like, this is a guy, because he plays a psychiatrist in that, and he comes across something, he finds out something that he shouldn't have, and then his whole life's in danger as a result of it. And you buy that this is a guy in fear of his own life, you know. So Roger's done some great stuff over the years. I mean, fair enough, he's had those roles where he's coasted along with the Roger Moore persona, and that's great. But again, eventually, also, he has done his fair share of stuff outside of the box like this, but he never gave himself the credit he deserved. But it's a wonderful, I'll try that again. It's a wonderful performance. That's what I was trying to say. He does a fantastic job. But this is a wonderful release from Studio Canal. We get this gorgeous artwork. We've got a wonderful slipcase, which we always appreciate. Great special features, which will be nice to go through. Also, we get it is just a single side. There's no reversible sleeve in this. It's just the one side. But we get some wonderful art cards, which was nice. So there's a few. They all have the same artwork on the back, so they all have that. But we get basically we got this one, and we get this one. I'm just going to save my favourite for last. We get this cool one here. And then kind of this, so this one is my favourite one. I love that shot of Roger, but these kind of go hand in hand. These are from like the finale of the film, but these go hand in hand because they've got that like Suspiria lighting and those Suspiria colours going on, and it's great. Yeah, yeah, I really, really dug the hell out of this, man. When we've got that Suspiria lighting going on, it's fantastic. But yeah, I really like this film. It's a lesser known one. There's a lot of people who don't know about it. I was first introduced because I was lucky enough to get gifted for a birthday present. I got the Roger Moore autobiography, My Word Is My Bond, and mentioned about it in that. Um, I'll have to get the rest of Roger's books. There's because he did a few, so I'll have to put them on the list. But yeah, The Man Who Haunted Himself, I really love this film. And I just love the whole vibe of it, like that late 60s, early 70s vibe, and that classically British thing that was lost to time. We're never going to get it back. It's heartbreaking, but it's true. Um, and Roger's just a fantastic leading man. You know, he's great. And just in terms of like the beautiful presentation, and the picture and sound quality is lovely. Really, really, probably best it's ever looked, best it's ever sounded. Granted, I didn't see the ITV Blu-ray and DVD release, but this one's, I can honestly say this is a fantastic release. So I think the other one's gone out of print, so this is probably going to be the easiest one to get hold of now, so I'd highly recommend it. So that wraps this up. Obviously we've got Crossplot and Escape to Athena. They're going to be delivered for me in May. I might follow this up with, because we've got like Gold, Shout at the Devil, we've got the Wild Geese, we've got North Sea Hijack. So we'll get around to them. Just going to figure out an order. And then maybe afterwards I might do, after them, then I might do like a cumulative video on the Roger Moore Bond films. And then we're going to have to get comfortable for me to do a video on the Persuaders, because that's going to be like a whole thing. But thank you for listening to me go on. I hope you've enjoyed it. Again, if you didn't know, this is out now. It's a lovely release. If you're interested in, if you're a Roger Moore fan, I think you should own this because it's a brilliant performance. But hey, please feel free to share your thoughts. If you've enjoyed the video, thank you. Please feel free to share your thoughts. I'd love to hear them. Always love to hear from you guys. And I'll see you all in the next one. Best wishes, everybody. Bye-bye.